In the summer of 2010, my mum had chest pains. She had x-rays, she had tests. Everybody said, we think you have a cracked rib. Then the pain got to a point where my mum was in bed, for days at a time, which wasn't my mum at all. My mum was one of the fiercest, most outgoing persons I know. And she went back to the hospital. And everybody said, it's just a cracked rib, it's complications from a cracked rib, and nobody really said anything else. Cancer was never mentioned until we got into this room. And my dad was there, my mum was there, I was here, and my sister was there. And they said, yep, you've got cancer. You have a tumour that goes through your lungs, through your ribs, and through your breast. It was a surprise to us all. She said, I don't want to know how long I've got left. So we all said, okay, well, we can get through this. There's treatments, there's everything that can happen. Cancer is not a death sentence, we thought. We all went back to our house. Mum stayed in hospital. We would visit. They were working out treatment plans. And then my mum had a heart attack and they transferred her to another hospital. And I went to Scotland. Then my mum had another heart attack and we went up to the hospital and they sent us back home. Then my mum had another heart attack. My mum had a heart attack every day for 5 days. On the 5th day, we were called up to the hospital about 5 a.m. They're saying she's had a massive heart attack and that's that. We stood over the bed listening to the doctor say, your mum will be dead by lunchtime. Categorically, your mum will be dead by lunchtime. At 2 o'clock, my mum woke up and asked for some strawberry ice cream. and she didn't die at that lunchtime. She didn't die for about 2.5 weeks later. I spent a week with her in the hospital. I slept on the floor next to her on the hospital. She didn't want anybody else to stay with her. She just wanted my Rose to stay with her. So I stayed on the hospital floor. One day matron came in and said, get off the floor, got me a bed and everything was a little bit nicer. But my mum wanted me there and that was that. So I stayed with my mum in the hospital in Glasgow. And then one day mum said, do you not have a job to go to? And it's like, no, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to be with you. And she went, I think you should go back to London. And that was it. My mum knew that would be the last time she saw me. I knew it would be the last time I saw my mum. And I came back to London. And then on the 20th of October 2010, so my mum died 2010. On the 20th of October 2010, my mum died of cancer. Complicated by a lot of heart attacks and some sheer bloody mindedness by my mother that she wasn't going to die that lunchtime just because somebody had said.
I had lost my mother when I was 9 years old, and it was a long time ago. In the 70s, which is when it was, there was no real support of the kind that is offered now. My brother and I was 9, my brother was 7, my dad and my grandparents looked after us and they did an amazing job. We never felt anything less than totally loved, but no one talked to us about what had actually happened. In the build-up, we knew that my mum was ill, but we didn't know she was going to die. She just kept going into hospital. No one ever said the C word. After she died, my dad never talked to us about it. And, as I say, we got lots of love. There was no one at school. My teacher said to me, are you okay? Literally, that was the extent of the professional sort of care.
So 3 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and 6 months later he passed away. And when he passed away, Rose messaged me to send her condolences. And she was the only person that I felt I could talk to, because I didn't know anyone else who had lost any parents from cancer. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't even really know Rose. I've known Rose as a colleague, as an incredible cabaret deity to a certain extent. Yes, deity. But it was someone who gave me so much comfort when I needed it the most. And for that reason, when a year later, for my dad's 1 year anniversary, I donated all of my cabaret funds and I did a lot of fundraising And I just wanted to keep giving. It really helped with my grief.
Within my family, there's a history of prostate cancer. My father and both of his brothers were diagnosed with it. My dad was lucky in some sense that he was able to take part in some, at the time, very experimental therapy. And he, at the time that he died from another cancer, he was in remission from the prostate cancer. So you can kind of sort of see the two sides of the work that charities do, the fundraising, the research that's going into prostate cancer. Because of research, because of monies raised, and because of the great work that the charities do, the direct result of that is that there are now greater chances of living with prostate cancer if it's diagnosed soon enough. And that's, so that was my dad.
So I've lost friends to cancer. My mother had cancer when she was 18. It was treated. She had it again a few years ago, and it was successfully treated. My brother had skin cancer, which was treated. My aunt lives with cancer, but it's treated successfully and it's kept to a minimum.
I think everyone is affected by cancer for many different reasons in many different situations, but the most personal for me was when my friend Chris died. He was a painter, he was a sculptor, he was a friend of mine for many, many years since I was very young. And he died of lung cancer and he was only 45. And, you know, you grow up and you think cancer it's what happens when old people die. It's a kind of the callousness of youth, that is, really, thinking it's an old person's disease, and it really isn't. He was 45 years old, and he phoned me after he got the diagnosis and the prognosis. And I remember telling him on the phone, you know, they'll do everything they can to help, and I will see you again. And the thing is, next time I saw him, he was in a coma. So we visited him a few times, and, you know, we talked to him and threatened to play music we knew he hated if he didn't wake up, but he didn't wake up. And then we got a phone call from his girlfriend in the middle of the night, and we went down there and they turned the machine off and he died. And it was fucking horrible.